Ya Ali Madad to all friends.
Hola Ali Madad.
Hola, Limadad.
Hola Ali Madad. Ji Kareem, Bismillah.
Bismillah. Ya Ali Madad. We are reading the book of healing, Quranic healing. We are starting a new chapter, Curse of False Fear. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Point number 1. Fear of God, the exalted, as he ought to be feared, is the real taqwa and the spirit of all worship, as has already been mentioned. It is not only appropriate and important, but also extremely necessary for every Muslim to have his wisdom-filled fear. Contrary to this, to fear his creatures is called false fear. This fear is inappropriate, futile, and untrue. It gives birth to numerous mental, psychological, and spiritual diseases and disables the one who has it from accomplishing heroic deeds as a mujahid. Thus, the wise Quran, in its wisdom-filled teachings, has enjoined the fear of God only and nobody else. Surah 33, Ayah 39. So that when the fear of God dominates and controls the hearts of the people of faith, the fear of anybody else will not be able to affect them.
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. So beautiful chapter, Cure of False Fear. False fear in Urdu is khauf-e-beja, unnecessary fear. And it is pretty clear in this paragraph that false fear is actually inappropriate, it is untrue, it is not needed. Whoever has this fear will be into diseases which are mental, psychological, spiritual diseases. And definitely it will not help a Momin who is in Lashkar, a Momin who is Mujahid, to elevate themselves. So, very interestingly, false fear is not good. The question here would be, do we have false fear? What is in practicality false fear means? So there are two types of fear. One is fear of Allah, fear of our God, and other is fear of people. When we talk about fear of people, it is called khauf-e-beja. It is called false fear. The true taqwa, real taqwa, Mu'mineen who are desiring to purify their deeds, do zikr ibadat, elevate their soul, for them it is very necessary to have fear of God, but no other fear. Now the question is that do we see this false fear in us? That is what we need to find out. But in this paragraph, briefly, it talks about that if someone were to have this fear, they will have psychological, mental, and spiritual diseases. Not only that, but it will disable a Momin from accomplishing, meaning if Momin Salik is working hard to elevate, to move further, this fear will stop them from moving further, which is very scary because we are here as Salikin and we all want to elevate. We want to come close to the Nur of Imam, and that is why we are studying this book, Book of Healing, to realize wherever we have these diseases, we need to seek cure, heal ourselves, so we become so pure, free of all the diseases, spiritual diseases, so we can become coming close to the Nur of Imam. Whoever has this fear, it will disable them from progressing further. So this fear is no for Mu'min Salih. And Allah says in chapter 33, verse 39, that A mu'min should not have anybody else's fear except the fear of Allah. Those who have fear other than Allah, they are on a wrong path. And those who are mu'mineen, their hearts are in zikr ibadah. Their hearts are dominated with the fear of Allah. It will not be affected by any other fear. તો અહીંયા આપણે બ્રીફલી એ સમજવાનું છે કે અહીંયા એક એવા ખોફની વાત કરેલી છે કે દુનિયામાં જે છે ને બે ખોફ હોય છે. એક તો ખોફનું ખુદાનું ખોફ અને બીજું જે છે બીજી જાતના ખોફ, માણસોનું ખોફ. તો અહીંયા એ સમજાવવામાં આવે છે કે જે લોકોને બીજા ખોફ હોય છે, ખુદાના ખોફના ઉપરાંત બીજા ખોફ હોય છે, એ લોકો હકીકતના અંદર નફસાની રૂહાની બીમારીઓમાં એ લોકોને થઈ જાય છે. અને જે લોકો આ ખોફમાં પડી જાય છે એ લોકોને એકચ્યુઅલી આગળ વધવામાં બહુ જ મુશ્કેલ થાય છે. ઇનફેક્ટ એ લોકો આગળ વધી જ નથી શકતા, કેમ કે એ લોકોના દિલ, એ લોકોની રૂહ આ ખોફના વજહથી બીમાર છે. તો એ લોકો ક્યારે પણ આગળ નથી વધી શકતા. હવે એના મુકાબલામાં જે લોકો ઈમાનવાળા છે, ઈમાનવાળા કોણ? જે લોકો તકવામાં છે. તકવાનો મતલબ જ છે કે ખુદાનું ખોફ પોતાના દિલમાં રાખવાનું. તો જે લોકો ઈમાનવાળા છે, જે લોકો તકવાને પાળે છે, જે લોકો પોતાના દિલ ઉપર ખુદાનો ખોફ રાખે છે, એ લોકોના પાસે કોઈ બીજું ખોફ આવી જ નથી શકતું. તો આ છે આપણે બ્રીફલી આ પેરેગ્રાફના અંદર આપણે સમજાવવામાં આવેલું. જી.
Point number 2. Regarding this subject, it is extremely necessary to know that false fear in men is due to nafs ammara, carnal or animal soul, and the devil. However, to be more precise, it is the animal soul which is the basis of false fear. It becomes evident if we see in the light of the Quran that although apparently it is Shaitan who is the means of all bad deeds, in reality, since all means are at the disposal of man, therefore it is they themselves who are responsible for all their deeds. Thus, it is extremely necessary for all true mu'mins, in addition to firm faith, trust in God, high ambition and zikr ibadat, to devote themselves always to the service of country and nation. The reward of this is extremely great.
સુભાનઅલ્લાહ. તો અહીંયા આપણે એ વાંચી રહ્યા છીએ કે આ જે ખોફ છે ને, આ ખોફ ક્યાંથી આવે છે? આ ખોફ એકચ્યુઅલી આવે છે નફસે અમારાથી. ક્યાંથી? નફસે અમારાથી. આ ખોફ આવે છે નફસે અમારાથી, કેમ કે ઇન્સાનના અંદર જે લોઅર નફ્સ છે, જેને આપણે નફસે અમારા કહીએ છીએ, એ નફ્સ જ્યારે હોય છે ઇન્સાનના અંદર, એની વજહથી માણસના અંદર આ ખોફ આવે છે. અને એને આસાન તરીકાથી સમજવું હોય તો ખોફ માણસોનું ખોફ, ખોટનું ખોફ, કોઈ વગર અહેમિયતે એનું ખોફ. તો માણસના અંદર જે નફસે અમારા છે, મીનિંગ કે જાનવરની જે રૂહ છે, કેમ કે ઇન્સાન જે છે એના અંદર 3 જાતની રૂહ આપણે વાત કરેલી છે કે મિનરલ સોલ, વેજીટેટિવ સોલ અને એનિમલ સોલ. તો એનિમલ સોલ જે છે, જે જાનવરની સોલ આપણા અંદર છે, એને નફસે અમારા કહેવાય છે. તો જ્યારે ખોફ એ બીજાઓનો ખોફ દિલના અંદર આવે છે, તો એની વજહ જે છે, એક કે માણસના અંદર જે જાનવરની રૂહ છે એની વજહથી, અને બીજું શૈતાનના વજહથી. તો આ બે ચીજો જે છે એ એક માણસને અસર કરે છે કે એ આ દુનિયાના ખોફમાં પડી જાય છે. એની મિસાલ આપણે જોઈએ, અને આ મિસાલ એક અજીબ ગરીબ મિસાલ મારા દિમાગમાં આવી કે અમુક બચ્ચાઓથી વાત થઈ રહી હતી, યુથથી, કે એ લોકોને મા બાપ જે છે જમાતખાને આવવાની, જ્યારે લોકો જમાતખાને આવવા ચાહે છે તો એ લોકોને એમ કહે કે ભાઈ તમે જીન્સ નહીં પહેરો, તમે આ કપડાં નહીં પહેરો, બીજા શું કહેશે? તો મને એક યુથે ક્વેશ્ચન કર્યું કે જમાત ખાને આપણે પોતાના ઈમાન માટે જઈએ છીએ, પોતાની રૂહ માટે જઈએ છીએ કે બીજાઓને દેખાડવા માટે જઈએ છીએ? તો ઓફકોર્સ એક આ મુશ્કેલ સવાલ હતો પેરેન્ટના સામે. તો કહેવાનો મકસદ એ છે કે ઘણી વખતે એવું સાંભળવામાં આવે છે, એવું જોવામાં આવે છે કે આપણે બીજાઓનો ખોફ વધારે કરતા હોઈએ છીએ. દુનિયાના અંદર માણસ શું કહેશે, બીજા શું કહેશે, એને કહેવાય છે ખોટો ખોફ, ખોફ એ બેજા. અને એ ખોફ ક્યાંથી આવે છે? ઇન્સાનના અંદર જે જાનવરની સોલ છે ત્યાંથી આવે છે અને શૈતાનથી આવે છે. અને આગળ જઈને અલામા સાહેબ ચોપડીમાં એમ કહે છે કે જ્યારે આપણે પોતે પોતાની નફ્સને કાબુ નથી કરતા, પોતાના ઇન્સાનની જે રૂહ છે, રેશનલ સોલ છે, એની મરજી નથી ચલાવતા અને જાનવરની મરજી જે ચલાવીએ છીએ, પોતાના અંદર નફ્સની ગુલામી કરીએ છીએ, તો એના રિઝલ્ટમાં આપણે જે છે એ ખોફે બેજામાં બીમાર રહીએ છીએ. અને પછી કોઈ એમ કહે કે નહીં, શૈતાન બી તો બાજી આપે છે. તો અહીંયા જે એક વાત બહુ ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ સમજવાની છે કે શૈતાન જે છે ને વસવસા આપે છે. શૈતાન જે છે એ વસવસા આપે છે. શૈતાન કોઈનું હાથ પકડીને કોઈને ગુનાહ નથી કરાવી શકતો. જે પોતાની મરજીથી શૈતાનને પોતાની રજામંદી આપે છે ને, તો જ શૈતાનની ગુલામી કરીને, શૈતાનના ટ્રેપમાં આવીને એ બીજાના ખોફમાં જાય છે. Here it is very important to distinguish that when we talk about false fear, the root cause of the false fear is surely our carnal soul. And we have talked about carnal soul in great detail, that it is that animal soul which is within ourselves, and we as humans have to overpower through our rational soul, suppress, kill, or transform the carnal soul to be able to make rational decisions. Then the second influence we have is from Shaitan, the whispers of Shaitan. Very interestingly, we have to realize that it is very easy actually to blame Shaitan that he deceived us. But his deception is actually based on our willingness. Whenever we blame Shaitan for anything, Shaitan actually didn't do anything. He does whisper, but to be listening to those whispers is us doing it. So whenever we blame Shaitan, first we'll have to look into ourselves that why did we listen to Shaitan? Did we not have enough knowledge, enough rationality in ourselves to be able to distinguish right from wrong? And if we have knowledge, then why didn't we, distinguish it? And why later on do we blame the Shaitan? So whenever we talk about Shaitan or carnal soul, we being humans, having intellect, we have more power than the animal soul within us, the carnal soul, or the ability of Shaitan whispering. Now, it is very much understood that everyone does get into that trap. But through this knowledge, what we are learning, that we need to be able to overpower these forces which are within us, carnal soul as well as Shaitan, in context of overpowering the false fear. So it says that it becomes evident if we see in the light of the Quran that although apparently it is Shaitan who is blamed for all the bad deeds, but actually it is the human who listens to Shaitan and then later on blames the Shaitan. But Shaitan cannot take anybody's free will. With our free will, we choose to walk on the path. So it is very important and necessary for a true moment, in addition to having firm faith, trust in God, have high ambition. પોતાના ઈરાદા જે છે ને એ ઊંચા રાખવાના, પોતાની ઉમ્મીદો ઊંચી રાખવાની, ચાહત સારી રાખવાની, અને પછી કેવી રીતે zikr અને ઇબાદતથી પોતાને ઇમામની જમાતની ખિદમતમાં જ્યારે આપણે રાખીએ તો આપણા અંદર એવી તાકાત આવે કે આપણે આ જે ખોફ એ બેજા છે, ખોટું ખોફ છે, માણસોનું ખોફ, ખોટું ખોફ છે, એને આપણે ઓવરપાવર કરી શકીએ. આપણા અંદર એ એબિલિટી છે. પણ એના માટે શું જરૂર છે મોમિનને? મોમિનનું ઈમાન પાકવું જોઈએ, મોમિનના અંદર ઈમામ પર ભરોસો જોઈએ, મોમિનના અંદર આ મોટી આશા જોઈએ, એમ્બિશન જોઈએ કે નહીં મને તો હું મુજાહિદ છું. જો મુજાહિદ કેને કહેવાય ખબર છે? જે બેતુલ ખ્યાલમાં લશ્કર હોય, જેને ઇબાદતમાં ઉઠવું છે, કાંઈ બી થઈ જાય, કેવી બી હાલત હોય, ઇબાદત મિસ નથી કરવી. એ લશ્કર છે, એ મુજાહિદ છે, મોમિન મુજાહિદ છે, તો એ ઉઠશે ને ઇબાદત કરશે. તો મુજાહિદને પણ શૈતાનજી છે એ કાનમાં આવીને વસવસા આપશે કે તું આરામ કર, તું થાકેલો છે, તું આમ છે તેમ છે, પગ દબાવશે, મીઠી મીઠી લોરી સંભળાવશે. પણ મોમિન મુજાહિદ જે હશે એ બધી ચીજોને હટાવીને પોતાથી અને ઇબાદતમાં બરાબર ચોકસાઈથી બેસશે. તેવી જ રીતે જ્યારે આપણે ખોફની વાત કરીએ છીએ, ખોટો ખોફ, દુનિયાનો ખોફ, માણસોનો ખોફ, આ શું કહેશે, ઓલો શું કહેશે, ઈ ખોફ જે છે એ ખોટો ખોફ છે અને એ આપણે બીમારીમાં નાખે છે. કેવી બીમારી? ખોટાની ખોફના અંદર રહીને આપણા રૂહને બીમાર કરે છે, આપણે મેન્ટલ સાયકોલોજીકલ સ્ટ્રેસ આપે છે અને એના વજહથી આજના જમાનામાં અગર આપણે વાત કરીએ તો જે એન્ઝાયટી ડિપ્રેશનનો જે રૂટ કોઝ છે એકચ્યુઅલી ફોલ્સ ફિયર છે. આ બહુ એક ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ અન્ડરસ્ટેન્ડિંગ જે આપણને હોવી જોઈએ કે એન્ઝાયટી ડિપ્રેશન જે છે એ ફોલ્સ ફિયરની વજહથી છે કે શું થશે ફ્યુચરના અંદર, એનું ખોફ, પાછલો ટાઈમ જે વયો ગયો એમાં આમ કેમ થયું, આવું ટ્રોમા શું કામ થયું, શું થયું, આ બધી ચીજો જે ખ્યાલાત છે એ બધા ફોલ્સ ફિયર છે. અને ફોલ્સ ફિયર ખોફે બેજાના વજહથી માણસના અંદર દિમાગી, સાયકોલોજીકલી, રૂહાની બીમારી પેદા થાય છે. તો મોમિનના માટે શું આધાર છે કે મોમિન જે છે પોતાનું ઈમાન મજબૂત રાખે, ઈમામ ઉપર ભરોસો રાખે અને zikr ઇબાદત કરીને પોતાની ઉમ્મીદો મોટી રાખે, તો ઈ મોમિનને ઇનામ મળશે. અધરવાઇઝ બહુ આસાની છે કેવું કે શેતાને બાજી આપીને, શેતાને જ્યારે ક્યામતનો દિવસ આવશે તો શેતાન કહેશે કે હું તો ખાલી કીધું હતું, હું તો ખાલી મશવરો આપ્યો હતો, અમલ તો તમે કર્યા ને. તો શેતાન પણ છૂટો પડી જશે, એને આપણે ઇલ્ઝામ નહીં દઈ શકશું. અને કાર્નલ સોલની જે વાત છે, આપણી પોતાની નફ્સ છે, એ જ જેહાદ છે મોમિનના માટે કે આપણને પોતાની નફ્સને મારવાનું છે અને ખૂબ વધારે ને વધારે zikr ઇબાદતમાં રહીને પોતાની રૂહને પાક અને સાફ કરવાનું છે. તો આપણે આગળ ચાલીએ. જી.
Point number 3. Reflect in the light of this holy verse again and again. Behold, surely for the friends of God there is no fear, nor do they grieve. Surah 10, Ayat 62. The wisdom of this noble verse can to a great extent help in understanding the subject under discussion. This is in the sense that God's friends are none other than human beings. But despite this, the Holy Quran, considering them the models of human progress, openly declares that they do not suffer from the disease of false fear. The reason for this is that there is always the fear of God in their hearts, in the form of knowledge. For the fear of God, or taqwa, in reality is in the state of knowledge. Surah 35, Ayat 28. From this, on the one hand, in addition to taqwa, the importance of knowledge becomes evident, and on the other, it also appears possible, and gradually mu'mins can get rid of false fear through knowledge and good deeds. For even though all of them are not special friends, awliya of God, Surah 5, Ayat 55, but certainly they are his common friends, Surah 5, Ayat 55.
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. So let's look at this verse first. So who's reading English and Urdu? 10/62.
Can I?
Ji, Bismillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Reflect, that's the same thing, right? 10/62? Or you want
Ji.
me to read the right side?
10/62, Quranic verse.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allah, okay, unquestionably, for the allies of Allah, there will be no fear concerning them, nor will they grieve. Shukran
Subhanallah.
lillah walhamdulillah.
जी शमीम.
सूरह 10 आयत 62 बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। सुन रखो कि जो अल्लाह के दोस्त हैं उनको ना कुछ खौफ होगा और ना वो गमनाक होंगे।
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. So very clear words that unquestionably those who are friends of Allah, and if you were to look at this word, awliya, mute kar lein Shamima. If you were to look at the word awliya, here it is. In transliteration, illa inna awliya. And the word awliya we are reading in this paragraph. So those who are awliya, meaning friends of Allah, allies of Allah, for them there'll be no fear nor they'll grieve. ખુદા કે જો દોસ્ત हैं, જે ખુદાના જે દોસ્તો છે એ લોકોના માટે કોઈ ગમ નથી, કોઈ ખોફ નથી, ક્યારે પણ કોઈ ખોફ અને ગમ નથી. તો અહીંયા આપણે એક ક્વેશ્ચન કરી શકીએ કે શું આપણે ખુદાના દોસ્ત છીએ? આપણે એવા મકામ ઉપર પૂગી ગયા છીએ કે આપણે ખુદાના દોસ્ત છીએ? કેમ કે ખુદા કહે છે કુરાનમાં કે જે લોકો ખુદાના દોસ્ત છે એ લોકોના ઉપર ના તો કોઈ ખોફ છે ના તો કોઈ ગમ છે. તો ઇમેજિન કરો કે કોઈ ગમ નથી તો કેટલી ખુશી હશે, કેમ કે દુનિયા તો ઘરમાં થમકા, તો કેટલું ગમ દુનિયાના અંદર ભરેલું છે. પણ જે લોકો ખુદાના દોસ્ત છે એ લોકો માટે કોઈ ગમ દુનિયાનો નથી. તો અહીંયા આપણે આગળ વાંચીએ કે આ કુરાનના વર્સથી આપણે સમજ પડે છે કે જે લોકો બી ખુદાના દોસ્ત છે, અને એ ખુદાના દોસ્ત જે છે એ ઇન્સાનના લાવવાની વાત નથી થઈ રહી, એમ વાત નથી થઈ રહી કે ફેરિશ્તાની વાત થઈ રહી છે કે કોઈ બીજી કોઈની વાત થઈ રહી છે. અહીંયા ઇન્સાનની જ વાત થઈ રહી છે કે ઇન્સાન જે છે જ્યારે ખુદાનો દોસ્ત બને છે તો એના માટે કોઈ ખોફ કોઈ ગમ નથી. પણ જે વર્ડ અહીંયા ઓલિયાનું આવ્યું, we use this word awliya, that tells us that from human being to human being there are darajat. Those who elevate their ranks and become the friends of Allah, for them there is no fear or any kind of grief in their heart. Why? Because they are the ones who follow, who walk on the path of taqwa. And this taqwa, when they follow the path of taqwa, how are they doing that? Actually, their hearts in the form of knowledge. They have had this fear of God in their hearts in the form of knowledge. Very interestingly, અહીંયા એમ સમજાવવામાં આવે છે કે ખુદાનો ખોફ જે છે ને હકીકતના અંદર ઇલ્મથી સમજમાં આવે છે. ખુદાનો ખોફ શું ચીજ છે કે તકવા શું ચીજ છે, કેમ કે તકવાના એક માના જે છે ને એ ખુદાના ખોફના પણ છે. તો જ્યારે આપણે ખુદાના ખોફની વાત કરીએ છીએ તો ઇલ્મથી એની સમજ પડે છે. તો અહીંયા સવાલ પેદા થાય છે કે ઇલ્મથી કેવી રીતે? તો જ્યારે આપણે ઇલ્મની વાત કરીએ છીએ તો આપણે નેક્સ્ટ વર્ડ્સને બી વાંચી લઈએ તો આપણે રિલેટ કરી શકીએ. જી 35/28.
Can I?
જી
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And among people and moving creatures and grazing livestock are various colors similarly. Only those fear Allah from among His servants who have knowledge. Indeed, Allah is exalted in might and forgiving. Shukran lillah.
જી શમી.
सूरह 35 आयत 28 बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। इंसानों और जानवरों और चारपाइयों के भी कई तरह के रंग हैं। अल्लाह से तो उसके बंदों में से वही डरते हैं जो साहिब इल्म है। बेशक अल्लाह गालिब बख्शने वाला है।
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. The only part which we are focusing according to the chapter we are learning is this one. Only those fear Allah from among His servants who have knowledge. Those who do not have knowledge, they will not know that they have to fear Allah. What will be happening to them? They'll be fearing people. They'll be in fear of people, what this person will say or that person will say. And for a Mu'min and Salikin who have knowledge, they know that the fear, if they were to have in their heart, it has to be fear of God, not the fear of people. Now, very interestingly, we have been learning that in ilm, there are darjat. When we have that understanding, it is very easy now to conclude that fear also has to be in darjat. Because the way you progress in knowledge, the more you understand all the secrets and subtleties in the true knowledge, you would also understand what is it to fear Allah. Very simply, whenever we talk of fear of Allah, we say we take this example that the fear of Allah is that we should not be away from His didar. Is that all, or there is more to it? Today, with the study of this paragraph in this chapter, we are learning that fear of Allah actually is learned through knowledge. If knowledge is in darjat, fear is also in darjat. તો અહીંયા બહુ મોટો એક કુલિયો આપણે શીખ્યો. કુલિયો કેને કહેવાય? આપણે કહીએ કે એક કાનૂન છે, એક ફોર્મ્યુલો છે, એક બહુ જ ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ ચીજ આપણે શીખી આજે કે માણસોનો ખોફ તો કરવું જ નહીં, કેમ કે એ તો નાદાની છે, બહુ મોટી નાદાની છે કે આ શું કહેશે ને તે શું કહેશે. જ્યારે આપણે એવી રીતે વિચાર કરીને એવી રીતે જિંદગી જીવીએ તો આપણું નુકસાન જ થાય અને રૂહાનિયતમાં ક્યારે પણ તરક્કી ન થાય. જ્યારે આપણે કુરાનની આ વર્સ લીધી, સૂરા ફાતિર વર્સ 28, અહીંયા ખુલ્લા ખુદા ફરમાવે છે કે જે લોકો ખુદાથી ડરે છે એ લોકોની આ સમજ, એ લોકો ખુદાના ખિદમત ગુજાર, ખુદાના ગુલામ, એ લોકોને સમજ કેવી રીતે આવે છે? ઇલ્મથી આવે છે. તો જ્યારે આપણે જાણી લીધું છે કે ઇલ્મ પણ દરજાતમાં છે, તો ખુદાનો ખૌફ પણ દરજાતમાં છે. જ્યારે કોઈ પહેલા દરજા બીજા દરજા પર હોય તેને આપણે એમ જ સમજાવીએ કે જો આપણે ઝાહિરી દીદાર કર્યા છે, હવે આપણે રૂહાની દીદાર કરવાના છે, તો આપણે રૂહાની દીદારથી દૂર ન થવાય ને તો આપણે ખુદાનો ખૌફ દિલમાં રાખવાનું, માણસોનો ખૌફ દિલમાં નહીં રાખવાનું. પણ આ કુલિયો જ્યારે આપણે સમજી લીધો તો આપણે સમજ પડી કે જે ખુદાના ખૌફને આપણે આજે સમજવાની કોશિશ કરી રહ્યા છે એનો અપોઝિટ સામે લઈને. શું છે અપોઝિટ? માણસોનો ખૌફ. તો માણસોનો ખૌફ તો કમ્પ્લીટલી ગલત છે. પણ ખુદાના ખૌફની જે સમજ છે ને એ પણ ઇલ્મના અંદર દરજા બદરજા આવે છે. કેમ કે સિમ્પલી શું કહેવામાં આવે કે ખુદા ઈ જે આપણે અસલમાં વાસલ કરે, આપણો મૌલા એ આપણે અસલમાં કે ને આપણે ગેનાને કહીએ તારીએ તું તારણ હાર ખુદાવન અવલ ના તારે દુજા કોઈ અલી તું હી તું. અલી તો એવો કે જે આપણે તારે. તો શું આટલું જ છે કે ખૌફ એટલે ખુદાથી કરવાનું કે આપણે તારી જઈએ? એના વચમાં કાંઈ બીજું છે કે નથી? તો જ્યારે આપણે ઇલ્મના રસ્તા પર ચાલીએ છીએ તો આપણે ખબર પડે છે કે તો ઇલ્મમાં તો કેટલા બધા પગથિયા છે. એવી જ રીતે ખુદાના ખૌફના પણ પગથિયા છે. જેટલું વધારે આપણે ઇલ્મ હાસિલ કરીએ એટલી વધારે આપણી અક્કલ ખુલતી જાય. તો આ બહુ ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ કોન્સેપ્ટ આપણે આ ચેપ્ટર સૂરા ફાતિર વર્સ 28 ના અંદરથી શીખ્યું. પછી અહીંયા ચોપડીમાં કહેવામાં આવે છે કે અહીંયા આપણે બરાબર સમજી ગયા હશું કે ઇલ્મની અહેમિયત શું છે, કેમ કે ઇલ્મથી ખુદાના ખૌફની પણ સમજ પડે છે. પણ ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ જે વાત છે કે ઇટ ઓલ હેપન્સ ગ્રેજ્યુઅલી. No one can say, oh, I have no fear of people. Everyone had to go through the process of learning. Gradually, mu'mineen who seek knowledge, they can get rid of the false fear. They become brave, courageous, and they do not fear people. But how did they learn that? Through knowledge and good deeds. When they learned this knowledge step by step, they were able to understand the importance of good deeds, which does not include fear of people, which does not include fear of people. And for even though all of them are not special friends, awliya of God. Now this is very interesting. So let's read this verse and then we'll talk about it. 5/55 G.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your ally is none but Allah, and therefore His Messenger and those who have believed, those who establish prayer and give zakah, and they bow in worship. Shukran lillah.
सूरह 5 आयत 55 बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। तुम्हारे दोस्त तो अल्लाह और उसके पैगंबर और मोमिन लोग ही हैं जो नमाज पढ़ते हैं और ज़कात देते हैं और झुकते हैं।
Subhanallah. So whenever we read Quran, we'll never read brackets. Why? Because it is opinion or a conclusion or thought of the translators. We just want to focus on the translation of the Arabic words. We do not read brackets. So
Sure,
Subhanallah,
inshallah.
beautiful verse, and it says, "Your ally is none but Allah." આપણો કોણ છે? ખુદા છે, બીજું કોઈ નથી. દુનિયાનો ખોફ કેમ નથી કરવાનું? કેમ કે જ્યારે મળશું, જ્યારે ખુદા પાસે જાશું તો દુનિયાનો કોઈ પણ આપણા સાથે નહીં આવશે. આપણે જાણીએ છીએ, રાઈટ? જ્ઞાનના અંદર આપણે કેટલી સરખાઈથી સમજાવ્યું કે ત્યાં દિવસે ના માઈ, ના પિતા, ના મા, ના ભાઈ, ના બહેન કોઈ સાથે નહીં આવશે. તો આપણે કેમ દુનિયાનો ખોફ કરીએ છીએ? શું કામ કરીએ છીએ? તો જે આપણો સાચો દોસ્ત છે, જે સાચો આપણા સાથે રહેવાનો છે, એ આપણો ખુદા છે, બીજું કોઈ નથી. So it is very clearly saying that your ally is no one but Allah and His Messenger, those who have believed. And then there is a third part which says, those who have believed, those who establish prayer and give zakat and they bow down. And it is actually first, it's being referred to Maula Ali, our Imam. And then those who are high ranking Mu'minins. Now, when we talk about this awliya, here we have to understand that it says in this paragraph, though all of them are not special friends, awliya of God. The word awliya first refers to our Imam. And then, because Imam is the Amirul Mu'mineen, he is the chief of all the Mu'minins. And then those Mu'minins who are right with Imam after Imam in the first ranking, right? But certainly they are his common friends. So when Allah says that, remember that Allah is your ally, nobody else. But there are awliya who establish, जो नमाज पढ़ते हैं, ज़कात देते हैं, खुदा के सामने सजदे करते हैं. But within that also there are categories. In everything when we study, हर जगह पे दर्जात हैं, दर्जात हैं, दर्जात हैं. और दर्जात ही को समझना बहुत बड़ा एक काम है कि ये चीज रियलाइजेशन में आती है कि वी आर गोइंग टू एलिवेट आवरसेल्व्स स्टेप बाय स्टेप. एक सीढ़ी है जिस पे हमें स्टेप बाय स्टेप चढ़ना है. सो व्हाट डू मोमिनीन नीड टू डू? नाउ when we read about common friends and awliya, actually it is telling us about different darajat in mu'minin. How those who are common friends and those awliya, do they stay like that? It all depends on how they are willing to come forward. And the more we study in the next paragraph, we will learn more about it because it explains to us. So let's read the next paragraph. G.
Point number 4. All people are not alike in facing common physical diseases. Some of them are so clean, cautious in eating and drinking, healthy and strong, with the best immunity that mostly they are not touched by sickness. They act upon every principle of sanitary science. Some others, even if they once fall sick, succeed in recovering from the sickness through medical treatment. There is a third group who easily fall sick and cannot regain health for a long time. The same is the case with the disease of false fear. That is, there are three groups of people in confronting false fear. A. Awliya of God. B. Mu'mins with high ambition. And C. Weak Mu'mins.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. In this paragraph, we are very clearly being taught, and it's a very clear paragraph, that there are distinction, there are darajat. And we have very clearly, with the physical example Lama Sahib is explaining, that when we see, people, a group of people who are very cautious, we call them germophobic, but they take care of themselves in eating, drinking, keeping things clean. So what happens? Their immunity is strong and they don't get sick easily. They're strong, immune, people. Whereas there are second category of people, they do fall sick, but because of their desire to get well fast, they work on it, they take care of themselves, and they recover very quickly. But then there is a third group of people who easily fall sick and they do not get well quickly. The way when we look at this example in the physical world, similarly in spirituality, this concept can be applied. The first category is actually of awliya, our Aima, our Ambiya, the Awwalin Mominin. That is why we say Imam is Amirul Mominin. He is the chief of all the Mominins. But then there are Momins with high ambition. These are those Mominin, they do fall sick. They do fall sick, but they, with their will, their willpower, their hard work, their striving, they immediately become well. They do not lose any time. And then there are third category of moments who are weak moments. They get sick easily. When they get sick, they do not get well faster. It takes them longer time. Now, how do we understand this point in context of false fear? When a Momin is Salik, or say in Jamaat, when we see all our brothers and sisters, those, number one, who do not have knowledge. Number two, they are not connected to zikr ibadat. If one limits themselves to what is important, what is compulsory, definitely the sickness which comes to the heart, there is no power within the being of that moment to heal himself, because there is no medication, spiritual medication. So whatever worldly problems, a Momin Salik will face, a Momin will face, it will influence his heart, his soul, his intellect. The sickness which is started physically will sicken the whole universe of that moment. His intellect, his soul, his physical being, everything. Versus that Momin Salik. Now there's a difference. This is a Momin Salik. One was Momin. This is Momin Salik. Salik is the one who's walking on the path, who's not standing on Sirat al-Mustaqim, doing what is compulsory to do. This Momin Salik, as soon as he falls sick, he will do more zikr, girya-uzari, more ibadat, more actually becoming very strict with carnal soul. Because when carnal soul, which is like a small insect, carnal soul in the beginning is like a small tiny insect. But if we continue to feed that carnal soul, it becomes like anaconda. It overpowers, it rules us. In reality, the ability of the carnal soul is of an insect, but it becomes so strong, so powerful that it now dictates that moment to do this and do that. But if that is a Momin Salik, it will say to carnal soul, you have no ability in front of me. You do not exist. I do not let you go out of the track. I am the ruler. I am the king. I will rule myself. It is my kingdom. When Mola Ali says that you have whole universe, who is the king of that universe? Our own self, our own soul. But that soul is connected to our intellect. When intellect is used rationally, when this communication is going on, the carnal soul has no ability. The shaitan has no ability to trap us. That is the example of the Momin Salik who has the high ambition. What does ambition mean? Physically, we all know. Oh, we do know in context of our children, they have to study, they have to do this, and they have to be successful, blah, 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 blah. What does it mean to be ambitious Momin? An ambitious Momin is the one who believes in Nawafil Ibadat, who believes in true knowledge, who does abundant zikr. Now, this ambitious Momin, who is actually Momin Salik, who is walking on the path, and something happens. There is a sickness, there is a wave of a false fear which came to his or her heart. What will they do? Immediately they will start doing more zikr, seeking help from Imam, start having conversation, special meetings with Imam. There are regular meetings. In a staff, you would have regular meetings to manage things. But when there is crisis, there is emergency, what do? You have special and extra meetings. A Mu'min and Salik will do extra sittings with Mawla, more zikr, more ibadat, and asking Mawla that Mawla, do not let this sickness reach to my soul and my intellect. Help me overpower this sickness. And that false fear, whatever that fear had let that Mu'min Salik feel, the burden in the heart, the soul became sick, the intellect was becoming burdened. That Mu'min Salik through zikr ibadat with seeking Imam's mercy will overpower. Meaning, this person who gets sick but does not give in to the sickness, continues to work hard, eats healthy diet, does whatever is needed to get well. So they fall sick and they get well. There's no time in that. Immediately they become well. But there are third category. When they get sick, when they are weak, they remain weak for long time. This is an example, an allegory is used for us to realize that when we are following our tariqa, which is full of ta'wil, it is full of essence. Falling sick meaning having this fear in heart for people. What will they say if they find out I am learning this knowledge? What will they call me? What if they know, they see me doing more zikr? What if they will laugh at me? Does it matter? Does it matter what people will say? But if this person gets overpowered by that thinking, meaning that you gave into that fear, and what did you do? You start hiding your zikr. You start hiding. I'm not saying being, not smart and intelligent. You have to assess your situation. This is just an example to help us understand that sometimes how the false fear can overpower a Mu'min as Salik and keep that Mu'min weak and sick for a longer time. It takes them longer time to heal and come up to the right path. The way we've been taking examples, right? That sometimes you become so worldly that you forget the zikr. Remember, we all are here with this intention and desire to stay in constant remembrance. But due to whatever was happening in the world, somebody forgot. And they forgot, a day passed, 2 days passed, a month passed, and they did not remember. And then something they heard and they said, oh, I was supposed to stay in remembrance. I forgot. And then they start. It took them a month. That is an example of a weak Mu'min. Versus a Mu'min is Salik who is consistent in the journey by keeping reminder for himself or herself, by having different intentions of doing different askar, different zikr, attending ilm classes, reading, ilm books which are full of ta'wil, listening to lectures, making notes. There are different ways of bringing the self back to the path. So yes, if there was a wave of false fear came in, but what happened due to their regular activities, due to their regular planning and intentions, they were brought back to the path. So these two levels, these are very important to understand. In reality, within these, even these three are broad categories, I would say. Within these also there are more categories. But if we were to summarize it, make it concise, these are the big categories that yes, there are awliya of God, then there are mu'minins with high ambition, and then there are weak mu'mins. And surely none of us wants to be a weak mu'min. We want to be a mu'min as salik, mu'min and mujahid with high ambition. It is our ambition, it is our desire to be close to the nur of Imam. So what do we need to do? We are being told what we need to do. We need to not let ourselves be overpowered by false fear. And if we want to protect ourselves, खौफ बेजा से खुद को बचाना है, लोगों के डर से खुद को बचाना है, तो क्या करेंगे? ज्यादा से ज्यादा जिक्र और इबादत करेंगे, इल्म गिनान में रहेंगे, ताकि अपने अंदर वो ताकत को पा सके जो खुदा ताला फरमाता है कि वो ऐसे लोग हैं जो नमाज यानी कि दुआ की पाबंदी करते हैं, दसों देते हैं और सजदे में रहते हैं, यानी कि ह्यूमिलिटी, आजिजी में रहते हैं। आजिजी कहाँ से आती है? इल्म से आती है। So do we see that how everything is interrelated? But what we are doing by studying this new chapter, we are identifying that this is also a sickness. This is also a spiritual disease which can take us far away from taqwa. So Alhamdulillah, should we continue with one more paragraph? Naveen Sahiba?
The paragraph after, is it about the treatment? Then maybe we do it tomorrow so we can consistently learn exactly.
Tomorrow. Okay. All right, we'll do that. So today kind of, we have highlighted the disease part, कि बीमारी क्या है और बीमारी से क्या होता है. But the more we go further, then we will be talking about more in terms of treatment and understanding this disease more in detail in context of the treatment, to realize that what are different ways of treating ourselves, because every individual is different. Every individual gets affected by cough beja differently. Therefore, the treatment has to be different according to what is our strength and what is our weakness. So we will study that in detail, inshallah, tomorrow only. Shukran lillah walhamdulillah. Ji.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. This is one of the most important topic I feel. With a lot of times questions are always about this, because it is so difficult to understand and differentiate between all of these, even the sickness you talked about. And there are so many times, and I love the example you've always used, that when the sickness comes, and if you are running towards Mola, then it's Mola's given, to increase your ranks or anything. But there are a lot of times when we are worried and anxious and depressed, and all of those things comes in. It gives us the concept of to think about this seriously and understand that where are we as such for our own selves. So it was beautiful. I think a lot of thinking and reflection is needed on that. Beautifully explained. Friends, if you have any questions or any comments, you can come forward.
While they're thinking, I just want to comment on what you said, reflection. Because every individual has to actually reflect. બેસીને વિચાર કરવું પડશે કે ક્યારે ક્યારે આપણે કેવી સિચ્યુએશનમાં, કયા મકામ ઉપર આપણે બીજાના ખૌફમાં પડી જઈએ છીએ. જ્યારે જ્યારે આપણે બીજાના ખૌફમાં પડી જશું, ત્યારે આપણે ઇમામના ખૌફમાંથી નીકળીને એકચ્યુઅલી શૈતાનના ખૌફમાં પડી ગયા. કેમ કે શૈતાનનો આ એક હરબો છે, આ એક હથિયાર છે કે આપણાના દિલના અંદર દુનિયાનું ખૌફ બેસાડી નાખે. કોઈ બી જાતનું ખૌફ હોય, દુનિયાનું ખૌફ બેસાડી નાખે. જ્યારે જ્યારે દુનિયાનું ખૌફ દિલના અંદર બેસી જશે, ઇમામનો ખૌફ નહીં રહેશે અને આપણે બુઝદિલ અને કમજોર અને બહુ જ પોતાને વીક મહેસૂસ કરશું. કેમ કે ઇમામના નામથી છે ને હિંમત આવે છે. ઇમામના નામથી હિંમત આવે છે. અને અક્સર આપણે વાત કરતા હોઈએ કે કેવી રીતે મૌલા અલીએ કલામે મૌલામાં હિંમતની વાત કરેલી છે, અને આપણે હંમેશા દુઆ માંગતા હોઈએ કે મૌલા તૌફીક, તાઈદ, હિંમત અને યારી આપ. તો હિંમત જે છે ને એના નામથી આવે છે. પણ એના માટે આપણે બહુ શાંતિથી ખ્યાલ કરવાની જરૂર છે. આ ચોપડીના અંદર આપણે વધારે ને વધારે ચીજો જ્યારે શીખશું, તેમાં આપણે ખ્યાલ અંદાજો આવશે કે આપણે બહુ ભાગાદોડીમાં પડેલા છીએ. આપણે બેસીને શાંતિથી વિચાર કરવાનો જરૂર છે કે આપણે કઈ બાજીમાં અને કેવી રીતે કઈ રૂહાની બીમારીમાં અટકાયેલા છીએ. જ્યારે આપણે પોતાની બીમારીને ઓળખશું ને, ત્યારે એ બીમારીની ટ્રીટમેન્ટ કરી શકશું. પણ અગર આપણે ખબર જ નથી, મનમાં ખાંડ ખાઈએ છીએ કે આપણા પાસે તો કોઈ બીમારી જ નથી, આપણે તો બરાબર ખુદાનું નામ લઈએ છીએ, તો કેવી રીતે પોતાનો ઇલાજ કરી શકશું? તો ઇલ્મનો ફાયદો એ થાય છે કે આપણને બીમારીની એની તપાસ કરવાની તાકાત, એની સમજ, એની અક્કલ આવે છે. જ્યારે આપણે બીમારીને તપાસીને એને ઓળખી જઈએ પછી બહુ મોટી હિંમત અંદર આવે અને બીમારીથી આપણે ક્યારેય પણ એનાથી કમજોર ન પડીએ આપણે. જી.
NIAMAT.
Subhanallah,
Um,
subhanallah. There, Ji Shabira.
so I just wanted to, when we talk about fear of others, I know you mentioned repeatedly, what will they say? What will they think? And does this fear also include, sometimes we feel like we're depending on someone or asking someone for something and they kind of have us in their hold, like we're indebted to them or they control us, right? Um, it could be the other way around too. But is that also that feels like a form of fear too? This is sort of we're letting others rather than relying on God that this solution will be fine in the right way. Would that include that kind of dependence or reliance in a not a healthy way?
So you have to understand it, Shabira. We live in this world and we need people's help, and we are in very many times in that kind of situation that we depend on someone, that due to their help we can come out of our difficulty or whatever the situation is. So it happens more than often. But the difference would be a Mu'min Salik will, the way they would think and behave. Let's say if person A needs something from person B, they will tell the person B that this is what I need and I would truly appreciate if you help me get this. And person A knows that it is, B has this power and ability, but they are probably arrogant or whatever. I'm just making up this example.
Yeah.
And they may make you feel truly low or begging in order to get you what you need. There's a possibility of A and B, that kind of situation, like really you are stuck without that help of that person. If this person who is A, if this person is Momin and Salik, when they go to this person B, very humbly they request that truly I'm stuck and I can tell you that I need your help. I truly need your help. But in their heart, they know and they will say, Mola, you are the overpowering, you are the decision maker, you are the most powerful. If this is good for me, change the heart of this person and let them help me. If this is not good for me, Mola, I submit my desires, my difficulties to you. Mola, I know that you will take care of me. That will bring very peaceful emotions in you, relax, calm, and freedom. On versus that, when you do not have that kind of thinking and communication to Imam, trusting Imam, which we all do. It's not that we don't. But whenever we are overpowered with this false fear, at that time, because we feel stuck, it may not be in our consciousness. The difference between the Momin Salik is and a ordinary or weak Momin is that Momin Salik will intentionally say it in their heart and realize and feel the strength and bravery of Imam in their heart. And they will put forward their request. And let's say that person doesn't do that. It doesn't matter. I am sure my Mawla has better plans for me. He has plans for us. So when that faith is there, seemingly we feel stuck. Very important element needed to be done. It did not happen. But remember, Mawla always has plan for us. So there'll be no fear. There'll be very peaceful feeling and calmness, and everything will work out. That iman has to be there. That trust has to be there. And that comes with practice. I hope this helps, Shabira.
Yeah, no, it helps a lot. Thank you.
Shukran, Mawla.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. Now, Taba, there is a question from a friend. If you have a family member that suffers from this disease, how do you help them understand and work towards a cure?
So if they are physically healthy person, mentally healthy person, but they are just has this fear of people. Um, so, remember that we are understanding that we are talking about normal people here. Some people have social anxieties, right? And it is just in their personalities. So we are not talking about those things. When someone has fear, if we were to help them with zikr ibadat, trusting in Imam, when we are dealing with younger children, right? Young children, if you see, toddlers and older kids, even younger, they would have fear of anything and everything. But what do we teach them? No, Yali Bapa is here. Yali Bapa will take care of you. You give your request to Yali Bapa. In Western world, there is tooth fairy or whatnot. But in the Eastern world, it is always Mola Bapa. I'm just sharing my experience, right? What I've seen in the East and West. So it is always Mola Bapa. Mola Bapa will take care of your desires. He'll fulfill all your dua you have to seek from Imam. And all the fears can be overpowered. Let's say, for example, for a child to walk in the dark, he has to go to restroom at night time, but he's scared. You always teach this child that Mola Bapa is with you. You are not alone. From the young age, you teach. You're never alone. Mola Bapa is with you. You don't see him, but he's there with you. You have to feel Mola in your heart. So depending on the age and abilities of that person we teach. I just give an example of a child that how we from young age teach that Imam is always with you. He never leaves you. You are never alone. So you should not fear. But on the other hand, one cannot be naive and walk outside at night time without any security or safety. We are not talking about that as well. So there has to be, intellectually these decisions are made. So I hope that I'm answering your question. If not, then I need more clarity in your question to be able to answer you more. If you ask generally, right? Generally, I would say, my dear friend, everyone has false fear. Everyone has false fear because the way I was trying to, subtly give this example, that the clash which we have in two generations, the younger generation and the older generation, and in context of, Jamaat Khana attendance or REC attendance, do not wear this, do not behave like that, do not do this, do not do that. These children are like, why do I have to fear? Why do I have to abide by these rules? I do not understand this, and there are children who do say that when they go to, my friends go to church school, they do not have to follow this or have to worry like that. And my answer to them would be that there are etiquettes. We are talking about etiquettes. No, you do not need to fear people. But in reality, what I'm referring to, that the generation, my generation, we were taught the false of people, fear, false fear of people. We were taught about it, what people would say, because there was no physical education. So it was taught to our generation to fear people. It was only with knowledge that, one would learn that we do not need to fear people. Whatever we are doing, it is for our physical development, our spiritual development, and our intellectual development. So world has changed a lot. World has changed a lot. So in that context, if you are talking about generally false fear, I would say everyone has that. But with time and with knowledge, with desire to come close to the Nur of Imam, one overpowers that fear of people and they do whatever they need to do. It is their Iman, it is their Bandagi, it is their Jamaat Khana, it is their Mawla. So with knowledge, there is ability, there is understanding to have the fear of Imam in the heart, love of Imam in the heart versus what people will say, or false fear of people, Khawf beja. Ji.
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. There's a beautiful farman actually, one of the friends, Naila Sahib, posted of Sultan Muhammad Shah. A man does not consider that if, after death, on the day of judgment, he would reply by saying that someone had misled his soul, then such an excuse will not be accepted at all. And there's another beautiful farman: you're committing sins in the world, you are showing weakness of iman, you are getting deceived by the world and by Satan. Hence your soul of Adam's nature becomes as hard as a rock, i.e. become heavy. Keep your thoughts such that after death your soul should not take rebirth and return from there, and must not reincarnate in the world.
So this Farman is a correct reference, but the translation is very
Islam.
proper. It's not correct because I read Farman in Gujarati, so this translation is not correct. So you got to, it is very important to be very careful who has translated. Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah's Farman has not been officially translated in English. I hope you know that. That is why it is so important to continue to read in primary language. If you understand Gujarati, there is Gujarati transliteration. Read this Farman with the Farman which Imam has made. There is no word reincarnation. There is no rebirth. So it is very important to be able to distinguish. The more you study, the more you'll realize that how we are misled by translators. So be very careful. But thank you for sharing wonderful references, actually. Alhamdulillah.
There is one more question in the chat. Um, it was read that man is responsible for his misdeeds, not Satan. Can you please speak a little bit more about that, please?
I'm so sorry. I was distracted. I see ZM is saying I can teach Gujarati in Kochki. I would say please get in touch with Naveen Sahaba and friends, whoever want to contact, give his contact out so everybody can approach him. Can you please repeat the question? I'm so sorry.
Ji. It was read that man is responsible for his misdeed and not Satan. Can you please speak a little bit more about that?
Yes, very important. Good catch. So the way we have to understand, normally when we talk about shaitan, we say, oh, shaitan ne bazi di, isliye ganaah hai. Subah kyun nahi uthe bhai bandagi mein? You know what? Shaitan ne bahut jo na achhi neend de di, to uthe nahi. Now, when we look at our book of deeds, हमारा जो नामा आमाल है उसमें लिखा गया कि भाई आज की सुबह की बंदगी तो मिस हो गई. That misdeed, that bad deed is not in the khata of shaitan. It is in our book. So how would it relate to shaitan? Did shaitan deceived us? Yes. If shaitan were not to be there, and if we were really, really wanted to wake up, but our intention was weaker probably, and when shaitan, sang beautiful lullabies, or, I say normally pav dabaya, achi meethi neend dilai, and we fell asleep and we did not do ibadat, for example, right? The sleep time, the missing of ibadat is not written in shaitan's khata. He's not to be blamed. It is us. In our book of deeds it was written. So it is very important to realize that there is actually no blaming on shaitan. This farman which Naila just posted, it clearly tells us that it is us, our misdeed, that we were not strong enough to fight the carnal soul or shaitan, and we became weak in front of that. So how do you overpower that? The question should be that yes, it happens. Now, how do we overcome that? That is the part we will study more in detail as treatment of false fear. So this question is pending to talk about treatment tomorrow.
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Wonderful session, Yamat Saiba. It is something which is close to our hearts that we need to understand and improve, inshallah, with true knowledge and with the understanding of how to conquer this. So looking forward to tomorrow's session where you're going to talk about treatment, and Anachis will post. We had this chapter actually recorded in Urdu and English. So Nachis will post it on the group as well, and it is posted in the chat as well. So see you all tomorrow for the treatment session for cure of false fear. Yali Madad. Thank you, Niamat Saiba.
Thank you, Yali Madad, Yali Madad,
Yani Madad.
Yali Madad, Yali Madad.
Thank
Yali
you.
Madad.
Yani Madad.
Thank you for reading verses, Quranic translation, Shanas, Yali Madad.
Yali Madad, Niamat Saiba, Nevin, and everybody. Good night.
Yali Madad. Good night. Yali Madad, Amina. Yali Madad.
Dad.
Yali Madad Verma. Yali Madad.
Yali Madad. Yali Madad.
Yali Madad.
Yali Madad.
Yali Madad Verma. Thank you.
Yali Madad, Niamat Saiba, and Nevin Saiba.
Yali Madad.